Hello, everybody. This is Table Tennis Chats number 3, and I'm with a chap who is purely a social player, Simon, and I'll let him do his introduction now.
Hi, I'm Simon Love. I live in Keynsham with Mark, and yeah, we met through Keynsham Table Tennis Club, which I'm sure we'll come on to very shortly.
Perfect. Yeah. And so, first of all, Simon, I just wanted to kind of get to know a little bit of an origin story about you, and how you first came in contact with the sport, and how you sort of progressed to coming and getting down to Keynsham Table Tennis Club.
Well, I'm very late to the sport, so I only really started playing in any sort of structured way about just under 2 years ago, when I first came to Keynsham Table Tennis Club. So I mean, I'm 29 now, so I didn't come to the sport till I was 27. So very late. Obviously, I'd played a bit of back and forth. When you go on holiday, sometimes there's a table tennis table and some knackered old bats in the garage. So that was pretty much the extent of it. And then in summer 2018, I'd been gradually getting larger as time had gone on, as happens to the best of us. And at that point, I was doing very, very little strenuous exercise. I was walking to and from work, but that was basically it. So I decided I needed a bit more exercise in my life, and thought I'd give table tennis a go, because I think the thing that's great about table tennis is that you don't need to be particularly fit to at least have a go. If you're unfit, you just can't go out there and play 90 minutes of football or a full game of basketball or whatever. So, but with table tennis, obviously you're not going to be very good if you're not very fit, but you can at least participate and improve and get some balls back on the table and have a good time. So I started going to the table tennis club with my wife Naomi, and obviously it's once a week on a Friday. We came down there pretty much every week. We were pretty regular right from the start, and basically continued from there. And then that combined with other things and a big change to our diets. Last year we both lost a lot of weight. So now I'm in a position where I'm looking to sort of push my game on a bit to the next level, just along with general development over time. And I guess that's the point where I'm at now, where I'm sort of trying to exit from the sort of beginner phase and sort of move into that more intermediate player.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's brilliant. And so, you mentioned you play a little bit on holiday and stuff like this. Was it ever really introduced to you much, sort of when you were younger at school or what have you?
No, nothing at school at all. That was literally it. I might play, 2 or 3 times a year, just knocking around in a garage, just playing really poor quality pushes to each other. Topspin was a foreign concept, and it was just as tends to happen when you get two people who've never played table tennis together, you just end up with a sort of pushing rally 4 foot high off the table, that kind of thing. So that was literally it. So coming down to your club was the first time I'd ever seen a slightly better standard of play. So that sort of made me think, oh well, this is what table tennis can actually look like if you get beyond that 4 foot pushing battle. And it sort of struck me as something which I could get better at and could reasonably take on as someone who wasn't in prime physical condition, put it that way.
So you obviously didn't watch, me play first, because obviously that technique would have put you straight off the game straight away.
Yeah, I mean that forehand. I'm glad I haven't modelled my technique on that, or else I'd be out of the sport by now. But no, it's there's plenty of good players around. You had Ricardo on last week.
Yeah, exactly right. So, like you said, you came in sort of, the summer of 2018. And so how did you sort of, sorry, looking at my notes, how did you sort of find out about Keynsham Table Tennis Club? I always find it interesting to see how people find out about it.
I think we might have seen it on Facebook. I think you may have been posting in one of the local groups, and I think we saw it from there. Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, there's always a lot of noise in those local groups on Facebook, especially in particular Keynsham, I find.
Noise is one way of putting it.
Kind of be polite, yeah. And so, what kept you? You obviously came in that summer. What kept you sort of coming back? What was the main appeal?
I think there are a couple of appeals really. I think one was the social side of it, and obviously it's a nice bunch of people down there, yourself included, and you've done a really good job of fostering that social atmosphere in the club, which is obviously one of your main. It is a social club, so you've quite deliberately and successfully gone down that path. And the other thing, I guess, is just from a personal level, is just the seeing the gradual improvement. You come back one week, one week you're just missing every shot. All of your slices are going 3 foot long, and you can't topspin anything. It's just rubbish. But then you come back next week and you don't miss quite as many, or maybe there's someone you've never beaten before who you managed to take a game off, or it's just that it's the incremental improvement which keeps you coming back. You sort of, I mean, you're playing against yourself really, because I'm under no illusion that I'm ever going to be playing mile long in the Olympics or anything like that. But you just, you have to set your own little goals and your own little targets for improvement, and that's what keeps you coming back.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely been noticeable with yourself, Simon. That kind of brings me on a little bit to sort of your ambitions in table tennis. Looking down again, because I've noticed the improvement. Over the last, what are we now, 18 months, isn't it, roughly, or a little bit longer because we had this.
Yeah, if you take lockdown out, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. So your sort of short-term ambitions, really, or if you've got any long-term, then yeah, what sort of?
Well, short term. So over lockdown, I've managed to. I've been talking about it for ages and ages, but I finally managed to sort out getting a table set up in my garage, and a robot to fling multi-ball at you. So that has given me the chance to over lockdown. That's given me the chance to really rework a lot of my technique to sort of get me into that next level up. Because as a beginner, you just sort of cobble together whatever you can to get through the game, and you're going very, very unorthodox. And I think before lockdown, I'd kind of, towards the end of last year, early this year, I think I'd sort of stagnated a bit, because I think I'd reached the point where I was as good as I was going to get without adding some more structured training and more specific focus on areas of my game. So I'd stagnated a bit. I was sort of thinking, oh, well, where do I go from here? Where do I go from here? And I think this has given me the chance to sort of focus my mind a bit and think about where I want to go in the sport, what specifically I want to improve on, and giving me a bit of a chance to have some introspection on that. Because the difficult thing with Keynsham Table Tennis Club and social table tennis in general is that it's very busy, and you're just playing game after game after game, and there's no structured practice or training time. And that's great if you're running a social club and you just want as many people playing as many games as they can. That's how they run. But for me, as someone who wants to kick on from that beginner level to getting a bit better, I think it's important. It was important for me to add some structured training to my routine. So in terms of specifics, I've completely reworked my serve. So I used to have a bit of a backhand serve motion, which was as far as backhand serves go reasonably good, but there wasn't a lot of quality on the ball, and everything was quite long. So I've moved away from that. I've moved to a more standard sort of pendulum serve. So I've been working really hard on getting that quality backspin and quality touch on the ball. And then the other thing, so I'm a left-handed player, which means if you're playing at the beginner level, most right-handed players are forehand dominant, and most of them play their forehand cross-court because there aren't that many beginners who can consistently hit inside out or down the line forehand. So as a result of that, everything's coming to my right, so I'm playing everything backhand. And I think I'd reached a point where I was so backhand dominant that I would much rather try and sort of shuffle across and hit a backhand shot rather than just using my forehand. And I think that was becoming a real issue in my game, in that my forehand was just weak and horrible. And so I've really, really been focusing in my garage on developing that forehand, developing the technique, and becoming a lot more aggressive and positive with my shot making. I've been specifically working on opening up from backspin, getting the loops. So trying to develop that looping game and trying to develop a much more offensive style of play, which I feel like that's the kind of style of play that's going to enable me to progress rather than just quite quite a defensive game, just hitting shots with general poor quality.
Yeah, this is music to my ears because I've got a very similar style. Obviously, being right-handed, though, I'm very dominant on my backhand. So I know exactly what you're talking about there about opening up the forehand and trying not to like swat the ball like a like a fly
Yeah.
swatter. um, and so obviously I've sort of got a rough sort of penciled in a rough idea of players in the club, obviously who are social players and players that I'd want to see join the local leagues. And obviously I've had you in the back of my mind for a little while, but as you mentioned, we don't really get the quality table time to go over a few coaching techniques and what have you during the Fridays. So it's really positive to hear that you've taken it off your own, off your own back to go and get a table, get a robot, and try new things and enjoy the process of learning as well. So obviously with Keynsham, we've got a small table tennis scene here. We've got recently got another team in the league, the C team for Key Centre. And so is that something you'd look to sort of try and join if the opportunity became about?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the next step in terms of getting to so accessing that higher quality of competition and being able to sort of test out your game essentially. Because I know where my game sits in terms of the social players in the club. Like I generally know the ones I'm going to beat and the ones who are going to beat me. At the end of the day, it's still quite a small pool of players, and I could probably list off several of them and tell you exactly how they play the game and what they're strong against and what they're weak against. But that means I don't get to test out certain aspects of my game which other people simply don't play. So I think getting access to that wider group of players through league play and giving myself some real tangible tests of my ability will be really useful. So obviously I know I can tell when I'm improving, and I can tell when a shot's getting better or when a serve's getting stronger, and so on and so forth. But you don't actually really get to test it until you have someone on the other side of the table. And I guess that's one thing I'm looking forward to getting out of once we get out of lockdown, is actually see if the work I've been doing makes a difference when you play against a real person. Because that's the one real weakness of training with a robot, is that, and you can program randomness into it, but you still, you're working within some very defined parameters, and you can only have one spin going at a time. So everything is going to be top spin or everything's going to be back spin. You can set the speed and where it's going to fire, but there's no real true randomness. Like you're not going to be sort of in the middle of a topspin rally and then suddenly someone just comes and chops the ball and you got to figure out what to do with that backspin. I think that those are the elements of my game that I really need to see when we get out of lockdown, if they've improved or not, and that I need to hone and work on with a view to joining the league. So I think until now I've not really been strong enough to join the league because there's been so many glaring holes in my game. So I hope, if we're talking about potentially autumn for league players, what I seem to be gleaning from the various chats you've been having so far, I'm hoping by that point I'll be in a much stronger position and have a much more rounded game and be ready for the challenge.
That's excellent. That's excellent to hear, really, because I'm looking forward to coming up. And I'm not sure about the whole rules in lockdown at the moment, whether you can go and meet someone or you can't meet someone. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that setup and having a few games with you to mix in that awkward, random style of my play, and test it against what you've been learning there. And obviously, it isn't strictly speaking, we have played a little bit of more competitive stuff because you helped me out in Battle of the Paddle, the Bristol sort of social networking competition last year or last last winter, yeah, around about there.
Done 2 cycles, yeah.
Yeah, and how did you find that? Because obviously you played a new set of players there, but it's a little bit different with a few bottles of beer involved and stuff like this, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed Battle of the Paddle. I thought it was and besides anything, it was just a good experience and a good to meet lots of other people. In terms of the non-table tennis benefits, they're all really nice people. A lot of them are younger, around our kind of age, which is really nice to meet those sorts of people. And then, in terms of the table tennis itself, obviously it's not a proper serious competition. There aren't too many people and there are some people who take it quite seriously, but and yourself included, I'd put in that group. No, a lot of people take it quite casually, and you have a bit of a chat, and as you say, you have a beer or two or three, and obviously then you have the great finals night at the end where you're playing in the bowl in the skate park, which is a really unique environment to play table tennis table tennis in. Not to mention how much easier it makes to retrieve the ball after the end of a rally when it just kind of hits off the wall and pings back to you. But yeah, it's a really good avenue for social table tennis. I know Dylan and Rusty took some time off Battle of the Paddle just before lockdown, and they saw the future there and saw it was going to be massively affected. But I do hope they bring it back and continue to do the really good work they're doing there.
Just a disclaimer there as well, Dylan and Rusty. We don't think that you've had anything to do with any sort of meltdown of society that we've seen at the moment. It was purely an observation there. Yeah, so that's great because obviously this summer as well, that's just kind of not happened. Would have been the sort of summer league for the Bath and District table tennis, which again, I was looking to bring on maybe yourself and even a couple of. I always think I want to bring on the youngsters from the club, that have done well, like Nathan and Andy at the moment. But there's also social players like yourself and Phil White and a few others like that, who you can also bring on. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the development thought process sometimes of sort of governing bodies and bits and pieces like this, because there's nothing wrong with bringing people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s back to the sport, or even trying it for the first time. So that was going to be my little testing ground to pop you in a few games into that, along with Andy and Nathan. So we've kind of missed out on a little bit of development so far. And I'm not sure what's going to happen with the start of the league, which would ordinarily be in September. Thinking out loud, if we can get back to playing table tennis, but the league, for whatever reason, isn't going to start till the new year, January, etc., then I might look at introducing some sort of like short format league play, either for the last hour on a Friday night or even on a different night of the week, to try and help players, like yourself and like a few others, just play that little bit of, competitiveness needed. So, watch your space with Keynsham Table Tennis Club for that.
What you were saying about the governing body there, it's tricky because I completely understand what you're saying, how you think that maybe the older people get somewhat overlooked, but I guess if you're looking at it from the governing body's perspective, their role is to try and develop the sport, and as a result of that, they're always looking out for those elite players who can develop into proper national players who can go across and win competitions and try and challenge the Chinese players and that kind of thing. So I could see why you'd focus that sort of. And they're working on a limited budget just like everyone else, so I can see why they'd focus on the younger players where there is actually a chance that they could develop into an elite player, as opposed to someone like me who is never going to be an elite player, and I'm coming to the sport 20 years too late. So I do understand that, but as you say, I think that there does need to be an avenue for people who want to still develop beyond the social play, whether that is supported by the governing body or not. I think local league play is the way to go, and then I guess you can see from there if you do actually continue to develop maybe into county play. And I know there's a lot of older players in local table tennis. In fact, I think we're probably on the young side from what I understand. So there's plenty of time to develop, and there's plenty of scope to kick on and have many years of good table tennis to come.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen the likes of, Ricardo, who was on the last episode we did, how his rapid development from being, I think, 38, 39 to being, sort of 40 years old now, and his rapid development in 3 years. And, he had quite a similar setup to what you've got now with a robot and single table, etc. So there definitely is room to develop. But yeah, I think, I saw, the reason I started sort of Keynsham Table Tennis Club is that I saw that everybody likes playing social table tennis, be it in offices, outdoor tables with ping, etc., in and around Bristol. But the only social table tennis sort of session in the Bath area, with Keynsham just on the outskirts, was in Oldfield Park on a Monday night, and it's always very oversubscribed. Obviously, since then, there's been a meetup group in Bath that's been started, and obviously Keynsham Table Tennis Club. And again, I've done that all sort of, I say self-funded, but sort of self-initiative. That's why I'm very proud of that. We've managed to get an actual C team with a couple of younger lads in it for last year, and then hopefully this year we can bring on a number of a couple more youngsters and a couple of other young players like ourselves, into those teams to try and bolster the numbers locally. Obviously, you found out about Keynsham Table Tennis Club online on Facebook. What is your sort of knowledge of local league table tennis here in Bath, or even what the maybe national structure looks like, if you have any ideas about what it looks like?
I mean, obviously, I have an awareness of the local league structure to a degree. I'm not obviously I've never been part of it, so I've not really paid particularly close attention. But just from hearing people like you talking about it, I've got an awareness of it. In terms of the national structure, I think it's a very confused sort of various pyramids of different kinds, and you've got the British League and the county county teams, and I'm not sure there's a to be honest, it's not really in my wheelhouse, because obviously I'm never going to be an elite player, so it doesn't particularly concern me what the pathway to being on the national, an elite level national player is, because it's simply never going to happen. But it does seem that there is a lot of confusion, and maybe for the players who are in that position and really trying to kick on, it would potentially be difficult to find a way to navigate through that. I've been involved in a couple of different sports in the UK. So obviously perhaps not obviously. I used to be involved in American football to a pretty heavy extent. I played it for a bit, and then I refereed it for a bit. And I think they had similar issues in that it's a niche sport where there's no televised UK game, just as there isn't in table tennis. I mean the only table tennis I've ever seen on TV is the Olympics. I guess with American football, you've got the NFL obviously broadcasts over here during their season, but there's no visibility of the British amateur game. I think we perhaps struggle with the niche element of the sport, even though a lot of people are familiar with it. I don't think a lot of people see it as a serious sport, because they're just used to seeing, as I was saying, the table in the barn when you're on holiday with the 4-foot high push rallies, and I think they maybe just see it as that and don't really see it as exercise, and don't really see it as a proper sport, which obviously we know is far from the truth. So there might be a bit of an image problem, but I think the governing body really needs to work exceptionally hard, especially in this day and age when it's so easy to broadcast your own games and develop that online following of what you've been doing. I think they really need to work hard to exploit, and maybe with more not maybe even live streams or more just recorded matches, so there's just more material online for the people who are keen to get involved. I mean, I'm not suggesting for a minute that British amateur table tennis is ever going to make it onto BBC One or anything like that, but at least if it's there online for people to see. And I think there's a lot of really good content creators on YouTube who've done some great stuff with that kind of thing, like the likes of Dan Ives with Table Tennis Daily, and a couple of other British content creators like Tom Lodziak with all of his coaching videos, and your mate Liam Pitchford and all that lot doing their podcasts, which you've gave you your proudest moment in table tennis, I think you said a couple of weeks ago.
Prestigious.
Yeah, so there are content creators out there who do a really good job online, and if you look more internationally, there's so much great stuff on YouTube, especially if you're trying to, as I've been, trying to develop your technique, sort of coach yourself. Obviously, it's no substitute for a real face-to-face coach who can sort of move you in the right place and correct what they see, but it gives you a good start. And I think if you can start to develop that content with the actual games and sort of develop more of storylines around the season, I mean, that's what keeps people interested. I think if they want to drive the development of the sport in the country, that's got to be the avenue to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of different characters in table tennis, not just at that elite level, but local level as well. And one idea that I've sort of been toying with, because I'm not sure whether I've mentioned this before on the channel or to yourself, but I've joined the Bath Table Tennis Bath and District Table Tennis League, mouthful, committee last season. So I did their match reports for local paper. And this year I've sort of talked to Ricardo a little bit about doing kind of little video clips and bits and pieces like this, so that after a match or during a match, if the teams just get a little bit of footage, then we can pop that on our sort of social media channel or channels, and looking to potentially take on someone else with me to help do that, so that we've got a little bit more coverage locally. I mean, is there anything that would not excite, but anything that you think that you'd want to see from a local league point of view?
It's really difficult, because I think the challenges you've got in terms of trying to do that kind of channel and that kind of content is, one, you've got to have the content, which you've got to obviously get people to produce for you, or you've got to produce yourself, which is taking more and more of your time as you're alongside your job and all of your other life commitments. But then there's also trying to develop the audience, because if you're developing a channel for Bath and District Table Tennis, that your audience is a very small group of people. So whilst it might be great for the people who are involved, and Ricardo's going to love logging on and seeing him, smashing somebody else off the side of the table, it's going to be a very limited audience. So there has to be a way of trying to expand that audience, and maybe rather than just being a Bath, it becomes a more regional thing. So you just multiply that pool outside the local area a bit. It's really difficult though. It's not. I mean, social media isn't an area of expertise for me at all. I don't know how to build a YouTube channel, but I imagine that you're going to have to overcome a lot of hurdles before that becomes commonplace, and before the audience catches up with the content, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've tried to do during lockdown, is just give the thing a go, really. Like I said, I think there's a lot of stories and a lot of sort of knowledge out there about table tennis, which I can impart onto people, and also people like yourself, Ricardo, Sue, all interesting characters and all different perspectives of the sport. But yeah, it is hard. There's a lot of noise out there in a social media land, and it's trying to get noticed. I mean, sort of, trick shots and what have you are commonplace, and very, very good to see, but maybe for the younger generation. But I mean, one thing I observed when I played Bristol League, I hadn't played Bristol League until last year, tail end of sort of last season, and I remember my first couple of games and winning. I think I won, didn't drop a set until like my third game, and I was very excited to see sort of where my report will be written up, because in Bath it's always written in the paper. And I said to my teammates after trying to search it online, I said, where's the report? Where's my name going? Is there anything written? And they said, oh no, Bristol don't write reports. And I was like, really? Don't write reports for your table tennis? Like, I know you're not doing it, potentially for glory, but it adds a little something to those players. Because if you look at, how many players play Bath, for instance, you're probably talking about 150 to 250 different individuals that play in that league. And Bristol's got 7 leagues, I think it is. So, you imagine how many players, actually play the sport there. So I think there is, like you said, it's a smaller audience, but then when you add in family and friends of those players, you're suddenly talking about a few thousand people that, might be interested to see Ricardo smash that bloke off the table, which hopefully isn't going to be me.
But yeah, it will be though, won't it?
Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I think it's a hard one, because we want to bring more youngsters through. We want to bring people back to the sport or into the sport at a later age as well. No offense. And so we're kind of like, it's a weird middle ground. Like you say, the time commitment. Obviously, furlough at the moment is easy to sort of get stuff done. It doesn't. I'm not a brilliant video person or whatever. I don't know what you call them. Not a YouTube star, but it's kind of putting the energy and the passion into something packageable for someone to read. And I think it will be harder when lockdown is over. I mean, we'll get back to sort of normality. But yeah, it's definitely something I want to try and keep doing and improving. But yeah, it's very hard to get it out there. Have you got any sort of questions for me about anything table tennis? Any other bits and pieces?
I guess my questions would be mostly around, as someone who's very interested in development and practice and improving, is if you think there is a way of, with social table tennis, a way of trying to bring those kinds of practices into the regular calendar, and having the time and the space to do it, I guess, because I think we've spoken offline about this many times, and there's been thoughts about having weekend sessions and that kind of thing. So I was just wondering if there'd been any further thoughts on that, and if you've had these thoughts in the wider Bath Bristol area, and to develop the audience for it, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think at the minute it's the timing issue is the main factor in it, in not having more sessions on. Again, it's venues and cost, I think, are the other big factors because table tennis is relatively cheap. You need a bat, a ball, and a table, and away you go. But it's finding those right venues to put it on, and then the venue charging the right amount of money to make it viable for everybody. I mean, I think table tennis when you do start to get into coaching elements, etc., I think it's unfair to expect a coach to do everything purely voluntary. I don't think it's too wrong in saying that because they've sort of gone through their badges at personal cost to them. But then it's pricing it at the right point that you're not costing people out because, professional people might be able to pay, your sort of 20, £30 an hour for, a level 2, level 3 coach to do a one-on-one session. And that's fine for some people, but for the working class or for the general population, if you like, it's a different matter. So personally speaking, from my own experience and sort of Keynsham Table Tennis Club, we have looked into weekend sessions, and obviously we made the club independent just before the lockdown, literally just in March. So I'd already penciled in to do some Saturday and Sunday trial sessions with the management to see if there's a take up on that. And one of those sessions would purely be for sort of coaching for people that want to improve, but it's making it cost effective for them. So you're not paying any more than say £5 an hour to go and do it. So yeah, it's all ongoing with Keynsham Table Tennis, but sort of this horrible situation that we're in right now in the world has just wiped everything from that. So I'm definitely keen to go and explore that when we're back and mobile again. But yeah, in terms of Keynsham Table Tennis and locality, it's just a waiting game at the moment until we know what's going on. But then it is a little bit unfair on my personal life outside of table tennis because even though all the content at the moment you're seeing is purely table tennis, and more table tennis, it's kind of my wife and further family and friends are saying, oh, why do you keep spending your time on this? Why are you doing that? You're not getting paid, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So there's a lot of external pressures outside of that. So it's kind of striking that right balance for me personally. But yeah, definitely watch this space. There will be something coming. But yeah, when the government allow it, I guess, and when it's safe is the paramount thing. Because I have been offered during lockdown by a couple of different sources to go and sort of play table tennis, but I haven't found it right because I couldn't do that to my further family and friends. And hopefully, everybody out there watching at the minute throughout these last couple of months, that you haven't been putting yourself or your family friends at risk just for a game of table tennis, which at our level is a hobby and an enjoyment factor.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying about the not expecting people to do it for free, and I don't think anyone, if you think about yourself personally, I don't think anyone is expecting you to do it for free. Like if you, as you say, if you've done your coaching badges and you're there to deliver essentially a service to people in helping them develop their game, then I think you should be compensated for that. And I guess that has to go as part. You take your venue hire, you charge what you want to charge for your services, and then you split that cost and between the people who attend, and you just have to sort of see how the maths works on that, and see if you'll get the audience at a certain price point. But I certainly don't think anyone's expecting you to give that time for free. You already do. You already give a lot of time to both the club and the leagues and the wider table tennis in Bath and Bristol in general, with a lot of, as you say, the media work that you do. You write up all the reports and that kind of thing, which is just it's great, and all grassroots sports do need those kinds of volunteers, but that shouldn't come at the detriment of your personal life, and it shouldn't be a financial burden for you to do so. So I think it's quite fair that you charge for those services, or if someone else comes in, if you enlist other coaches, then they should be paid just as well. And if the price comes out, it ends up being £10 a session or whatever, then it's that's the price it is. And if you want to pay it for that service, then that's what you pay.
Yeah, I
That's
did.
my take on it.
Excellent. Yeah, because I did look at partnering up with Table Tennis England to sort of they do a couple of different sort of projects at the moment for getting more people involved. So they've got like TT Kids, they've got Bat and Chat for older people, and one or two other projects as well for people returning to table tennis. But I went on a couple of their webinars and started crunching the numbers, and that you had to upgrade your free listing of the club to a Premier Club, which was X amount a year, and then you got certain bits of equipment and what have you from them to say do table tennis kids, for instance, and then it cost you had to then buy it from Table Tennis England, and then it left you a very small margin that what they were suggesting you charge for it wouldn't actually cover your hall costs and what have you. So yeah, I was a bit disillusioned with that side of it, if I'm honest. So that is something that, and I don't think I'll get in trouble for saying that, but it's something that I just observed with the number crunching, and being an accountant, I think you can appreciate that. I might actually have to show you the actual figures, but yeah, so it is a difficult balancing act, because when you do create a club essentially from nothing, I did it with the intention to get people to play table tennis. But then as soon as I took that club from just being a branch of Somerdale Pavilion, when they changed ownership, I wanted to make it independent so we could protect our brand and our assets, so that if anything happened with the pavilion, that they didn't want to have table tennis there anymore, that we could actually take our brand and our logo and our image and our ethos and implement it, say, at Wellsway School or Broadlands or Village Hall, whatever that may look like. So yeah, suddenly then you're taking on roles and responsibilities that are a bit above my profession or knowledge base. So be that accounting, be that social media. I don't do that professionally, but it's something that I've learned over time. You've got welfare aspects as well. You've got safety, all these different things you don't appreciate when you're just trying to get a group of people together having fun and hitting some balls across the table to each other. So maybe I should start to branch out and get a committee for Keynsham Table Tennis Club to ensure that we're doing things in the right and proper way and bring together a couple of different skill sets into the mix. So yeah,
I was just going to say, before you talked about getting a committee in places, I think that's going to be absolutely essential, because there are a lot of people at the club who come from different professions and different skill sets who, we've all got a lot out of the club in the time we've been there. Yes, obviously we pay for our sessions, but I think the return we've received on that is very good. But I think you need to, if you feel like you've got a lot on your plate and you want to look at other things, but you still got to keep up the day-to-day that is required to keep the club running, whether that be collecting subs, setting up tables, calling out the peg system, all that kind of thing. You need to get help from other people and ask for it when you need it, because it will be there if you ask for it. We just need to know what you need doing, and there will be people there to do it. So do.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely difficult though, because when you mold something from from nothing, it's very hard sometimes to let go. But I think that's probably something I've got to let myself go a little bit and get better at, really. Like you say, asking for help when and if it's needed. But no, certainly good room to sort of think about those sorts of things. And yeah, I'm just excited for developing the club whenever we can, because I'm absolutely itching to get back to a table and start hitting some balls again. I mean, it's been far too long. It's almost like my time in Aberystwyth when I was like 5 years away from the table, and I was like, oh, I need to get back. So yeah, it's very cool.
I didn't want to turn this into a counselling session or anything, so I don't want to take it off there. But yeah, I mean, obviously you got the independent club status very shortly before lockdown, so I think it's yet to be seen quite how that is going to work going forward. But maybe before we all come back to the table, whenever that may be, maybe there needs to be some sort of conversations with some of the people who've been at the club a while and trying to figure out how those responsibilities will look going forward to give you more of a hand and help you free up the time for you to concentrate on the things you want to do, like the developing the content for the local leagues and developing the bringing more players into the sport and trying to figure out ways to keep them in, and the extra sessions and all that kind of thing, which you might have the time to do if you've got other people taking care of the other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was very interesting speaking to Sue on the first chat that we did, and kind of looking to get into a couple of the girls' schools in Bath, because at the moment we've got very few girls that play table tennis. I think it is literally 6 players in the league out of about 150, 200 players. So yeah, stuff like that will be quite time consuming as well. So yeah, lots of room to think about. But I think that's pretty much it from me, really. You got any other bits and pieces?
I don't think so. I think we've gone over pretty much everything. It'll just be no, it's been really interesting seeing your chats with Sue and Ricardo, and I'm sure there'll be many more interesting chats to coming up. I don't know who you got lined up next, but no, it's been good, and I think the work you've been doing with the YouTube stuff and the content you've been putting out through lockdown's been really good and helped me sort of feel like things are still carrying on, even though obviously we've not been at a table for 3 months. And yeah, I think it'll just be trying to figure out how we all transition out of that lockdown into the whatever the new normal looks like in table tennis. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about not playing doubles for a long time, and obviously that's going to have a big impact on essentially the capacity of the 4 tables we've got, and maybe how many people you can have sat on the side waiting for sessions. So I think there's going to be a lot of challenges. There's going to be a lot of challenges coming up for the club and for our sessions and the space we're going to have. So I think we're going to need to have a lot of conversations about that in the coming weeks and months, and see what that'll all look like and get us all back there.
Exactly right, Simon. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely buzzing for getting back, whatever that may look like, just so that we can, like you say, start normality again, and every day then doesn't feel the same. We've got something to strive for and look forward to. But yeah, so that's it from me on this table tennis chat. So thank you very much, Simon. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
And hopefully you guys, at home watching, got a lot of value out of this. If you have, please drop a like. Subscribe if you'd like. Big red button, press the little bell, etc. So I've rehearsed this quite a bit. So also make sure you share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, MySpace, Bebo, everywhere like that. Yeah, I've been Mark. Thank you very much. See you later.